Now, the best way to start a new file would be just to open one of my clips to initiate it. So I'm just going to go File, Open. And here is the folder of the video clips as well as my audio clip. I'll just pick the top one here in the list and click Open. And there is my file starting with the file name there. I guess I'll just go Save As at this point and create a new file here. And let's see, I'll just keep it in my digital imagery folder, and I'll just call it, we'll call it last name. I believe it's 11A as a lesson number, but if it's different, just put the different lesson number in. Last name, lesson number, .psd, and save. Okay, so I actually have a video clip right now. I can scrub along and see it. I can move my borders around a bit. I can zoom in, of course, Command plus, Command minus to zoom out. These are very low resolution, so they are only fairly small. But you can drag your playhead along. I can hit my play button, of course, here, and so on. Okay. So when we start it, it initiates as what's a thing called a video group. If you remember, the video group is the track element that will allow me to put several clips on that single track. Okay. Now I'm going to shrink my view here of the timeline right now. And I think I'll bring in my audio track right now, and then I'll bring in some more video clips. Now the way we add clips once we have the timeline up is with the plus sign at the end of the respective element here. Okay. Plus. And let me go back to my folder with my elements. Incredible.mp3. Click Open. And there's my audio file. So if I scrub that back and hit play, and there we go. So we have sound. So what I propose to do right now is I'll bring in the rest of the video clips all within this video group. Once I have them all in, I can rearrange them, if you will. So I'm just going to hit the plus sign right now over here. And I believe I can select them all now that I have a file initiated and a timeline established here with a video group. I'll select all four and just click Open. And they should all appear here, and I'll shrink the view of my timeline. But there they all are. So now I have 5 clips. And again, if I hit play, they're the full clips. Actually, I'll just scrub through them. So they're just kind of different stock footage imagery. Looks like mostly New York, I think. Okay. And just save. So right now I have clips, I have audio, and if I want to edit these, like shorten and lengthen the clips, you just go to either end. You click and drag. It's pretty intuitive that way. If I want to take some off the front end, I can. Now if I want to zoom in on that, I can just increase the view and just scroll over here and just work on that and so on. Okay, so if I shorten these, I'm going to shorten them all at the front end to start with. Simply by dragging on either end, the tail or the head as they call it. Okay. And I'll shrink my view a little bit here. And we'll bring this one way down. I want them to match the duration. So again, I'll shrink this one a bit more. And this one's quite long, so let's bring that quite a ways down. And I actually want to keep this one longer, so I'll push that one out a bit and pull that out over there. Okay. And it looks like I came a little short, so I'll just go a little bit farther. And there we are. Just save that. Now, if I want to create some transitions, I can go over to this little icon here with my transitions, click on it to access them, and it's a click and drag. Crossfade is in between clips. Fade basically just fades the one clip out. So I'll go crossfade and I'll drag it in between these two clips. By default, that will be a 1-second dissolve. Okay, so let's just hit our enter key to hide that. And I'll hit my play button, and we'll take a look at that one edit. And you saw it had a very smooth dissolve from one shot to the next. Okay, so that's how you can create transitions. You just open the box, drag and drop it to either the tail or the head of the clip, or with respect to the crossfade in between the clips, and you're good to go. Now, I'll just show you over here in the layers. These are all my tracks, okay? And if I click on them here, you will see them highlighted, and vice versa. Okay, so they're typical elements in the layers. I can also include graphic elements, and I can actually separate these from the video group as well. So why don't I take this one, and I'll take it out of the video group. By doing that, it's going to generate its own unique track. And you do it over in the layers panel. So I'm going to grab it and drag it outside of that group at the top like that. And now it's outside of the group. And you see it's on its own track now. I can click on these. I'm going to shift click these and just drag them over because they seem to have filled in the void once that one left the group. Okay, now that they're moved over, they will leave that empty space, and I probably can snap. Yeah, it snapped right there. Okay, it's going to look the same on playback, but this is now on its own separate track. I'm going to do that on purpose because ultimately I want to put a filter feature onto that track. Okay, so maybe we'll do that right now. Actually, let's do that right now. Okay, so it's this clip right here that I wish to apply a filter to, and I'm going to move my playhead over across it as well so I can actually see it when things change. And to apply a filter to an entire clip, I'm going to just tell you up front, it needs to be converted to a smart object. Otherwise, if I was to apply a filter, it would only apply to the single frame wherever my playhead is aligned to. It wouldn't apply to the whole clip, just to one single frame, which is 1/30th of a second. Okay, so that was the big reason why I pulled that particular clip outside of the video group, because ultimately it needs to be turned into a smart object, as I mentioned. So to do that, you can just right click over here and go convert to smart object. And it changes, and it's the familiar icon with looks like a file inside of a file. I'm going to name this layer actually. I'm going to call it filter or filtered maybe. Filtered. There we go. And at this point I can apply a filter to it, and it will again render throughout the whole clip. So let's go up and look at our filter gallery. And I'm just going to zoom up here, Command plus. And I guess the last filter I used was this one called halftone pattern. You have all kinds, as you know, in here. And some obviously more dramatic than others. So I think I will settle on, let's see, that halftone pattern. It's pretty dramatic, so I think I'll just use that just as an example. Okay. I'll click OK. And lo and behold, that filter feature is now applied to the whole clip. So I'm just going to play it back here. Okay, so let me move the playhead back, and that is how we apply a Photoshop filter to a video clip. Again, the important step is to take that element, that clip, and convert it to a smart object. Once that's done, all the available filters are available to be applied to that clip. So I'm going to create another layer with some text right now, and we'll animate the text, and we'll have a little fun with that. Okay, so there's my text tool, and let's see here. I'll keep it at this bright green, and I'll go with the impact. It's a nice bold font, and let's just do first name, last name. Okay, first name, last name, and I'm going to select that and make it a little bigger. I'm just going to use my sliders up here in my properties, and let's try 24. There we go. And I'll go to my move tool and just position that. And I actually should have been paying a little more attention, but it's a good thing to point out right now. Wherever my playhead was, that's where that element will get initiated, and I believe it defaults to 1 second. Now, as you can see here with graphic elements, I can shrink and stretch their duration just by clicking on the ends, and I can also move it around. Okay, but it did get initiated, or it did get created at the point where my playhead was sitting. And in fact, it's not a bad place to have it start. In fact, if I want it at the exact 2 second mark, I can just line that up there and snap over to that. So if I play that back, there's the name showing up, and it will last until you see it disappear on the timeline. And there we go. So let's have a little fun with that. I'm going to move my playhead back here. And let's animate it. And we'll add some features to it along the way. So to animate it, I'm going to open it up with the little arrow here. And I'll start just by moving it. So I'm going to move my playhead right to the beginning. And I'll put a keyframe there on transform, because moving it is one of the things that we transform. I'm going to move my playhead a little farther up, and we generate keyframes by clicking this little diamond. So I'm going to generate a second keyframe here, and that is where I'm going to have it come in from. So I'm going to go back to my first keyframe, and we go from keyframe to keyframe by clicking these little arrows. Okay, select it on the stage, drag it to the left off the stage. Now, when I move my playhead, it's going to animate to that resting position that was the second keyframe. Okay, and I'm just going to do that for 2 more here. I'm going to let it sit on stage for quite some time. And then about here, I'm going to click to create a new keyframe. And I'll make another keyframe right near the end. Click the little diamond, and I'm going to drag it upwards off the stage. So it's going to do an exit, up and out, just like that. Okay, so if I start right here, let's do a playback. Sits on the stage, up and out. Okay, and if I want to stretch that, I can stretch it and move my keyframes accordingly. Okay, I can move them anytime freely by clicking on them. Let's do another transform. Let's put our playhead in the middle here. Okay, so this is right where it's sitting on the screen and not moving. So right in the middle, I'm going to make it bigger. I believe if I just enlarge it here, it will generate a keyframe. I'm going to take a risk and try that. So with my text layer selected, I'm going to go to transform, which is Command T on the Mac, Control T on the PC. Drag that out, and I'll hold my Option key to keep it centered. And I've just animated it getting bigger. I'm going to hit my Enter key first to accept that change. There we go. And it did initiate a keyframe where I made that change. So now it's going to get bigger, and then get smaller again to its original size, and then fly up. Okay, let's try something else here. Let's put a stroke on it, and also we'll animate an outer glow. Those are both styles. So I'm going to line up my playhead with these keyframes. So I will just click on these arrows to get it aligned and start a new keyframe on the style layer right here, or the sub layer. And you click the little stopwatch to generate a keyframe. So these are styles. Now it's under the effects menu. Unfortunately you can't see it, but I'm going to click stroke and put a black stroke on my text. So when you see it appear, and I'll scrub ahead here, I've got a 2-point black stroke on the text now. Okay, I'm just going to leave that like that. I'm not going to keyframe anymore. I just put a stroke on it using my effects. But I do want to animate on the style layer here. I want to animate the outer glow and move ahead to the next keyframe. So I moved ahead using these arrows, and I'll generate a new keyframe right there. Here's where I'll actually affect the outer glow. So I'm going to add that outer glow. Now I do want to have it start at 0. So on size, I'm going to, you see the glow right there, I'm going to set it to 0. Okay? So there will be no glow until it comes in the middle and rests. I'm also going to keyframe it in alignment with this so that it disappears again before the next movement. So I'm going to use this arrow to push to that next keyframe that aligns with that, generate a new keyframe, and what I've done there is I've basically reserved the glow set at 0 right down here. So now I'm going to align with this keyframe. So I click that arrow and then make a new keyframe right there and go into my glow. So I'm going to double click the outer glow and just bring that size up really big like that. There we go. Click OK. And that should animate getting bigger and then disappearing again like a flash. See, there we go. Alright, so we've animated a glow getting bigger and then disappearing. We've animated the text getting bigger and then smaller, as well as moving in and out of the screen area. That's a big save right there. And I'll just play it back from the beginning. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. These are just more clips. So you know what, just to smoothen this out, I'm going to add some more dissolves between these clips. So cross fade and just drag them in between. And I'll do one on the last two. I'll leave that one as a hard edit. Okay. And we'll extend this one out. When we do the cross fades, it actually absorbs a little bit of each clip, and that's why they shorten up a little bit here. I am going to save that. All right, so if I pull my timeline up a bit here, we'll take a look at it. On the bottom, we have the audio. So let me speak about actually these little arrows at the end of each clip as well, because I do want to change something in the audio. If you click on there, you get some of the clip properties. I do want to fade them both in and out, so I'm going to do it fade out over 2 seconds and the fade in over more or less 1 second here. And I can type it in if I want it to be very specific. So I'll leave the volume at 100% and I can hit my enter key. The video clips, you can actually change the duration. You can also change the speed. So I can make it slow motion, fast motion, just by coming in here and changing this with the slider. Okay. With respect to these objects here, they are different and you could have some fun with these. You can move things around. I'm going to leave it at no motion, and that only applies to a smart object, which is right here. Okay, and with my text, we also have the same kind of options as we had with our smart object. Okay, so I'm just going to click away from that. So another thing I'm just going to quickly show you as well is I'm going to select this clip right here, and we have our scissor tool, which is for cutting clips. So if I click on there, boom, it's cut. And if I want to shuffle these around, I can take that cut clip and move it to the front of this little pile right here, and I've just shuffled that clip away from its partner, if you will. Okay. So a couple little tweaks here and I'll be ready to export this as a video file. I'm just going to extend this to the very end. And I'm going to put a fade from black at the beginning and a fade to black at the end. So I'm going to call up my transitions, fade with black, and I'll drag that to the beginning of this clip. And I'll drag that same transition to the end of that clip. Just hit my enter key and save my file. Okay, so at this point I'm ready to export. I could go File, Export, But I have a quick button down here, this little arrow, so I'm going to click on that, which calls up my render video window. Keep the name your last name, lesson11a.mp4. Select the folder to determine where it's going to be saved to. And I've got a folder here, so I'm just going to click choose and leave the rest of the settings as they are by default. Okay, and let's just click render. I had done this before, so I will replace it. And I just need to wait for it to render. Okay, it seems to have rendered, so I'm just going to bounce out to my desktop here. There's my folder there, and there's the file. So I'm just going to hit my spacebar to preview that on the Mac here. Yes. And there you have it. That's how you can actually use Adobe Photoshop to edit, create effects, create animation, and then export it as a separate video file. And I'd like you to create one of these and hand in your MP4 file only. That's all I'll need to look at. And hand that in on Canvas.